So I am finally getting around to finishing off my Anastasia videos that I've been wanting to make for a while. Sorry, being at home all the time actually makes me less productive. Don't really know what's up with that. This is the video where, while I like the Anastasia musical, it's going to sound like I hated it. Just know that this is not hate. I just have a lot of thoughts on what the movie did better storytelling-wise, and how the musical could have been way better. Before I get into my problems with the stage version, I would like to list off some pros. Number 1, the set. My gosh, it's a gorgeous set. If that set and lighting could be applied to every single show that I ever see, I would be in love. Number 2, I love the opening scene and how it's essentially set up like a ballet. I thought that was a really nice way to tell the first part of the story, and it also gives us a taste of the culture. Number 3, while I missed the fantastical elements of the movie, I really liked how this really ran with the period piece idea. It gave us so much history. Number 4, I like the idea of the new bad guy, quote-unquote. However, this also falls under my complaining portion of the video, but just know that I like the concept overall. Number 5, I loved how they paid homage to In the Dark of the Night with the ballad Stay I Pray You. No, wrong show.
We have shed our tears and shed our sorrows.
This song.
Come, my minions, rise for your master. Let your evil shine. To bridge and river, forest and waterfall, orchard, sea and sky.
I mean, who knew that melody was actually gorgeous? Number 6, I like that there was still a nightmare scene incorporated, even if it wasn't as extravagant as the nightmare in the movie. Number 7, the Countess and the Common Man stole the freaking show. I mean, Vlad and Lily were absolutely hilarious. I mean, whenever I saw it, they got a standing ovation mid-show, basically, and they deserved it. That was an amazing scene. And yeah, there you go. Other than things that were the same as the movie, that's about all I liked. In my last video on Anastasia, I talked about tonal problems and why I didn't think they applied to the movie because the setup for the different tones was there from the beginning. And in the musical, the setup is probably what I have the biggest problem with. I'm going to start with a small thing. Like I said in the pros section of this video, I really like that we opened the musical in a ballet format. And I actually would have loved to see the ending or the climax between Anya and Gleb be done in a ballet style as well. Something about that whole confrontation was just really awkward to me, and I think maybe turning it into a ballet would have helped a little bit. Getting into a few bigger problems with the setup now, this might turn into a rant a little bit. Let's talk about Anya's escape and the music box. In the beginning of both movie and musical, we see Anya's grandmother give her the music box. We also see Anya get separated from her family to retrieve said music box in both versions. However, in the musical, we don't see anything after Anya gets to the music box. In the movie, we see that Dmitri was a servant in the palace, and he helped Anya escape by opening a wall. We see Anya and her grandmother go through, but she drops her music box. So we see her lose the music box, and thus how Dmitri gets his hands on it all at once. We go on to see Anya slip from her grandmother's grip off of the train and hit her head, which leads to her amnesia. Where the musical messes up is that it assumes we've seen the movie, that we already know that Anya gets separated from the music box and that she develops amnesia. That's not good storytelling. You're leaving out crucial information for the story going forward. And back to Dmitri and the music box. In the musical, he just found it being sold by a street vendor. He didn't know if it was really Romanoff property or not. In the movie, the fact that he knew the music box was Anastasia's was what gave him the confidence that his scam would work.
Don't forget, one look at this jewelry box and the Empress will think we've brought the real Anastasia.
In the musical, he's just trying to get something that looks fancy that the Romanoffs might have owned at one point. For some reason, him just stumbling upon it really irks me. That was awfully lucky for him to just randomly find the one thing in the whole world that would confirm Anastasia's identity to the Dowager Empress. Number 3. In the movie, Journey to the Past reveals Anya's desire to go to Paris. And once she's in St. Petersburg, she tries to get a ticket. An old woman tells her to go see Dmitri, and that is how our crew meets. And while I'm not upset at the musical making Journey to the Past the Act 1 finale, they forget to cover the setup of Anya wanting to go to Paris until after she randomly runs into the place that Dimitri and Vlad are trying to find in Anastasia. Our first glimpse of her after the time skip, she's working at some store, and while Gleb, who is the new bad guy, tries to talk to her, she says she needs to get back to work. She can't afford to lose this job. But then the next thing we see is her going to Dimitri because she wants to go to Paris? What? What happened to the job? Why was she suddenly like, oh, I'm gonna go to Paris, when she couldn't afford to lose her job in the previous scene? How did she find out about Dimitri and Vlad? Why did none of that get covered? The musical just assumes that the audience already knows this information, and again, that's not good storytelling. Number 4, Count Ippolitov. In case that character name doesn't ring a bell, he's the guy that sings the solo in Stay I Pray You. When Anya, Dimitri, and Vlad are finally leaving Russia, Count Ippolitov walks in, acknowledges Anya, and kisses her hand, and then waits for the train. Now, the whole idea behind this scene is just to show different aristocrats trying to leave Russia. But Count Ippolitov is the only one we really meet, and the way that he treated Anya made it seem like he recognized her. So I thought maybe he would be a part of the reveal. But we never see him again. He just sang a pretty song and left. Since I thought the reveal in the musical was super messy, which will be my next couple of points, I thought it would have been cleaner if there was someone that actually recognized Anastasia from Once Upon a Time instead of what we got. Number 5, Anastasia realizing who she was before meeting her grandmother. In the movie, Dimitri knows beyond the shadow of a doubt that Anya actually is Anastasia when she starts talking about the servant boy opening a wall in the palace, because he was that servant boy, but he never told her about that. Anya doesn't believe her own memories at that point. She's just waiting to see if the Dowager Empress will know if she's Anastasia or not. Since the musical doesn't even bother to show how she escaped, and also didn't have Dimitri working in the palace, they had to come up with something else, and I don't think it was a strong idea at all. In the song In a Crowd of Thousands, Dimitri is talking about this time in his childhood when he saw Anastasia from a coach in a parade and ran after her, and they made eye contact and she smiled, and then Anya says he bowed. And Dimitri's like, what? I didn't tell you that. How could you possibly know I bowed, even though every person knows that you bow to royalty if they acknowledge you? There's no way you could just come up with that idea off the top of your head. How did you know I bowed? You must be her. And Anya's just like, yeah, you didn't have to tell me. I remember such a minute little detail about a random boy who must have been the only one ever to run after my carriage when it's passing in a parade. That's such a weak thing to go off of. I also don't understand the purpose of any of this if they both started questioning this realization once they actually met the Dowager Empress. Still making them unsure after this makes that little development we got in this song rather pointless to me. I think it's also supposed to be romantic that they have this memory together, but, huh? Sorry, not buying it. Not only do I find it a completely outlandish scenario, it's just not romantic. Maybe that's just my dead romanceless heart talking, but I don't buy it. And number 6, the reveal. I thought the reveal was a mess that was dragged out way too long. First of all, we don't see Anya's meeting with her grandmother. We stay out in the hall to hear Dimitri sing a forgettable song, and then Anya storms out when she hears about Dimitri's con. I get it's a musical, and I love musicals, but this moment did not need a Dimitri song. It didn't really do anything to develop his character, and it takes us away from the drama that's happening on the other side of the wall. Secondly, it makes Anya and Dimitri backtrack on fully knowing that she is Anastasia, and makes both of them wishy-washy in this situation. Gosh, and I hated the way Dimitri handled the situation when the Dowager Empress came out of the room. Stepping on her dress, telling her, why do you think Russia turned its back on you? Really? I mean, I just found these reactions really immature of him. Thirdly, when the Dowager Empress sang Close the Door earlier in the show, the dialogue surrounding that song stated that the fake Anastasias were always calling her Grandmama, and Anastasia always called her Nana. But when Anya actually does call her Nana when they meet for the second time, she doesn't even bat an eye.
My Nana was the most loving woman imaginable. That was before they murdered everyone she loved.
Like, what the heck? That should have been the first moment that she was like, oh shoot, this is her, isn't it? Even if the music box in their song is the ultimate reveal, hearing the word Nana should have created some kind of reaction. And the whole not wanting to believe and you've come too late thing just felt awkward and just prolonged the scene to an intolerable length. So that is all my issues with the setup of the storytelling in the musical. But I still have more grievances to talk about. Let's get to my problems with the characters. And a note before I do get started on them, this is not a critique on any of the performers. I thought all the performers did a great job. This is strictly my thoughts on the characters themselves. Number 1, Anya. I didn't like the changes they made to her character in the stage version. She wasn't feisty or rough around the edges like she was in the movie. Our first meeting with adult Anya, she basically gives off this deer in the headlights vibe. If you take away her feistiness, you take away the thing that I loved about Anya and Dimitri's relationship to start off with, their banter. I mean, this movie is a big reason why I'm a big fan of the hate-to-love trope. Although now that I think about it, Beauty and the Beast is probably also responsible for that too, but anyway. Their banter is almost completely missing in the musical. They have a couple of lines of fighting in their first scene together, and then by Learn to Do It, which is the very next scene that happens in literally 5 seconds, Vlad has them dance together, and then no more fighting, they like each other now. Where's the vivacity in their relationship that I love so much? Where's the build-up? Where? Despite all these complaints, though, Anya did at least develop in a positive way in the stage version. Even though she starts off essentially a scared little girl, she comes into herself and becomes a strong woman that finally knows who she is. Number 2, Vlad. I actually liked the changes to Vlad's character. He was a lot of fun to watch. But I didn't think he had any real dynamic with Anya and Dimitri in the stage version. In the movie, he was a father figure to both of these characters, and that fatherly aspect is pretty much gone on stage. The musical tries to shoehorn in his Learn to Do It reprise, which is the song in the movie where Anya and Dimitri are dancing and he's just watching them. The song doesn't work in the musical because, like I said, the fatherly aspect is gone, and they also just put it in the strangest place right before they go in to watch the Russian ballet. I am very grateful for the Countess and the Common Man, though. That song really did make the show for me. Number 3, this is the point that I was going to say for last because I imagine it's going to be my most unpopular opinion, but it kind of informs the last thing that I would change, so here it goes. I hated this Dimitri.
So much. Flames on the side of my face.
I hated him so much that I would have rather not had him in the show whatsoever. I mean, I felt like he was pretty much just there because he was the romantic interest in the movie. I mean, how could you take this wonderful man right here, probably my second movie crush ever, and just completely take away everything great about him? Like I already mentioned, his banter with Anya, pretty much gone. What's more, movie Dimitri was suave, smooth, sure of himself, but you still see traces of his hurt and insecurity about his past throughout the show. I didn't see the smooth side of his character in the musical at all. In the movie, he also has amazing character growth in 2 big ways, and the musical takes away one of those aspects of his growth. The main thing that we see in both versions is that he goes from trying to con an old woman out of a fortune to turning down that fortune when it's offered. That's present in both, and it's great character development. But there's an aspect of Dimitri's growth in the movie that I love just as much as that is completely gone in the musical.
You think you're gonna miss it?
Miss what? You're talking?
No. Russia.
Nope.
But it was your home.
It was a place I once lived. End of story.
Well, then you must plan on making Paris your true home.
What is it with you and Holmes?
Well, for one thing, it's something that every normal person wants.
In the movie, his conversation with Anya on the train shows us that he has no real concept of home, and that he's basically just running away from everything. He's not really moving towards anything in life. In the final part, we see him turn down the reward money and start to head back to Russia. But as he's about to buy a ticket, you see him change his mind. He decides to go back to Anya because he's no longer that little servant boy. He's not running away anymore. He's found the closest thing to home he's ever had, and he goes back to fight for it. In the musical, Anya has to freaking go get him! And when she does, he says something along the lines of, "Next time you see me as you're passing in a parade, don't wave or look at me. I don't want to spend my life pining for something I can't have." Like, fine, you whiny little... Go have a mediocre life that you're still running away from. Dimitri in the movie is not a whiny little... Why did you do that to him, stage version? Why? Why? And finally, we get to my last point. I actually really like the idea of the bad guy in the musical Gleb. He's not really a bad guy, he just works for a corrupt government that's trying to snuff out anything left of the monarchy. His father was also a corrupt official, and he was just trying to follow in his footsteps. He's the one assigned to make sure Anya doesn't leave the country and to arrest her or kill her if she resists, but he was conflicted about it the entire time. The other cool thing about his character was that he was in love with Anya, and I honestly would have loved to see the musical run with that idea. This is what I would have loved to see. Gleb and Anya love each other, but she has this inkling to find out who she really is. She hears Vlad's name and affiliation with a ticket to Paris, so she goes to meet him, and they develop a father-daughter bond. In the meantime, Anya and Gleb's relationship becomes strained because she starts believing that she's Anastasia, and he knows that he'd have to do something for the government if she goes on believing this. She ends up having to escape from Gleb in order to get to Paris, even though it breaks her heart. That way, in the finale, when Gleb finally catches up with her, it's way more painful for both of them, until finally his love for her conquers the love for his country and he lets her go. He goes back to Russia to say she couldn't be found or that she died. And now we have a beautiful tragic love story because they can't be together in order to protect her. I don't typically want tragic love stories, but sometimes it seems like it'd be the right touch. But because of whiny little Dmitri and trying to shoehorn the movie into the musical, Gleb's entire storyline is sidelined. Anyway, that's probably a highly unpopular idea because people love Dmitri, which I get because I love the movie Dmitri. But because I hated the stage Dmitri, I came up with this whole other storyline. And that ends Summer's rant for today. I'm exhausted. This was 5 pages of notes. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I did enjoy the musical, and I just wanted to remind everyone of that because I said it so long ago and have complained so much since then that we might have forgotten. If you stuck around for this long, thank you so much. Let me know your thoughts on the musical or anything that I said in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye!